Hello, my name is Jordan Applin, and this is my final ClassFlow lesson for CI 454. The name of my lesson is Capitalization, Spelling, and Punctuation. My lesson is for a second grade classroom. It is in the subject of English and focuses primarily on grammar. For my lesson, I decided to go with a theme that looks kind of like a blackboard because I will have my students coming up to the screen and writing on it. On my first page, I have the name of my lesson, and I can go ahead and pull down here my standards and my objective. So my standard that I chose was demonstrate command of the conventions of standard English capitalization, punctuation, and spelling when writing. The objective is, after correcting capitalization, punctuation, and spelling mistakes in a given sentence as a class, students will be able to find mistakes in the sentence with 100% accuracy. So the purpose of this slide is just to get my students a little bit acclimated and ready for the lesson and just give them a brief overview of what we will be doing. So after I show them this slide, I would explain to them that when we write, we use the correct capitalization, spelling, and punctuation, but a large part of the writing process is also being able to go back and look for mistakes in your own writing. So today in this lesson, that is what we will be doing as a class. We will be looking at mistakes and correcting those mistakes. So after this, I would go ahead and go to the next card. On this card, I would tell the students what we are going to do next. So I would tell them we're going to circle the mistake and write the sentence correctly. At this point, I would have students raise their hand and I would have a volunteer come up to the board. Now this is when it gets more interactive for the students. I would have them choose a pen from the smart board and they would go ahead and pull down and it would reveal the problem that I want them to solve. So we would read it as a class. Sarah picked 4 apples at the apple orchard this weekend. I would then ask the student to circle the mistake and rewrite the sentence correctly. So the student would hopefully come up, circle the 4 here because it's spelled incorrectly, and they would rewrite the sentence. At this point, we would have a discussion about how this would be an example of a spelling error because 4 was not spelled correctly. At that point, if the student got it correct, I would say, okay, you can go ahead and click on the next card. And they would go click on the next card and they would get this cute picture of a little puppy saying, who's awesome? You're awesome. I thought that this was a really cute, interactive way for the students to kind of have fun with the lesson and engage in the ClassFlow features. So then I would go to the next slide. This student would hand off their pen to another student volunteer. This volunteer would come up to the front and we would read the sentence as a class. My parents and I like to go to the movies. And then the student would have the opportunity to circle the mistake and rewrite the sentence correctly. Another thing that I forgot to mention was that I would tell the students, make sure that we are not blurting out the answers out loud. We want our friend that comes up to the board to be able to really get the full use of the interactive smartboard. So they would come, hopefully circle the I, and it would be followed by a short discussion about how this is a capitalization error because I, when it stands alone, is a word and it needs to be capitalized. Then this student, when they get it correctly, I'd say, you go ahead, go to the next card. They would go to the next card and they get this cute little emoji smiley face. Just another thing I just added in for fun because I thought that the students should be able to have a little bit more fun when talking about grammar. So then they would go ahead and choose the third and last volunteer. They would come to the screen, grab the pen, and we would read it as a class once again. Last night I played with my friends. At this point, the student would most likely circle the end of the sentence and rewrite the sentence, adding a period at the end. That would be followed by a short discussion about how punctuation, we always need to end a sentence with some sort of punctuation. This is where the student could choose to do a period or an exclamation point. They could kind of make it whatever they wanted to make. And then they would go to the last slide once again and get a check mark, job well done, and moving on. Now we are to the assessment for the lesson. So great job. Now it's your turn. Complete the next 3 examples on your own. And during this time, I would give the students a paper copy of the assessment where they would have sentences that they need to correct on their own and rewrite. The reason I chose to do this on paper copy instead of using technology was because I felt like the students needed to practice physically circling the error and rewriting the sentence, because that's what we do in the writing process. And I felt like if we were to use the ClassFlow, they may not have gotten the same effect as physically rewriting the sentence. I also wanted to make sure that the students were showing me their own individual assessments, and the paper was the best way to go about doing that. So finally at the end, thumbs up class, you guys did a great job. Another thing that I added into my lesson was these individual badges. So I created this badge. They're grammar experts. So the students that came up to the board and corrected those 3 examples for me in front of the class, I would send them this grammar expert badge, and it comes with 1 point. So those students were rewarded for being willing to come up to the board, do it in front of their classmates, and be kind of vulnerable. So that was a cool way for me to be more interactive with the students, as well as giving them a more personal aspect to the ClassFlow experience. Since my lesson did not have a student tab as well, it was just as a class, I felt that it was necessary to give them that badge so that they were able to use their ClassFlow account on their own. So that is my lesson. Thanks for watching, guys. I had a really fun time making this lesson and experimenting with ClassFlow. I learned a lot, and there's a lot of stuff that I'm looking forward to doing with my future students.